Hi, so I'm back again, and my how can tapping help with money problems? Facebook Live that I was going to do turned into more than one. Well, I thought it was going to be three. Today was going to be the third and final one, but I realized I've got too much to say. I guess that's my problem. I'm always talking too much, but it's good information. It's really useful. I think it can really help people. So, hey, Andrew, welcome. I don't know if you've seen one of these before, but this is my Facebook Live on how tapping can help with money problems. And it's the third one. The first one, let's see, what were they? The first one was how to tell if you have a subconscious money block. The second one was where do those money blocks come from? But today, I was going to do just how to tap for money block problems, but I realized there's just too much. So I'm going to talk about identifying your specific money block and how to do that. And then next time, I'll do how to do the tapping for that. I won't be here next Monday, I'm going to be out of town. So it's going to be a couple of weeks before I'll be back to do that one. But this one, you got it. As far as I'm concerned, it's a really important thing to identify the subconscious block that's getting in your way first, because that makes it so much easier to tap to release it. The first one I talked about how to tell if you have that subconscious money block. And the short answer is if you have any financial challenges, there's probably a block subconsciously in you that's preventing you from getting where you want to be with money. And that's most of us. So what can I say? And it's easy to see them when you got spending issues. It can be harder when making the money is where the blocks are, or holding on to the money. But any sort of patterns with money, where there's a money ceiling or roller coasters or boom and bust, or just a sort of a belief that, there's never enough, that can be pointing you to a money block that you have. And that they come from all sorts of places, from experiences, from messages you got from family, from just watching your family or people around you, experiences like the culture that you grew up in can cause all of these things. So the thing you got to do if you want to get rid of them so you can get on with doing the good stuff is to identify what they are and then tap it away. So how do you identify where your specific money block comes from? Well, let me describe how I do this with my clients, because money blocks, well, I do this for all sorts of blocks, all sorts of subconscious blocks to create in the life you want to have. And I use the same process. And quite often those blocks are around money. So what I will do is when someone has signed up to work with me one-on-one, I will have them fill out a questionnaire before we start. And this questionnaire talks about what they want, what they've noticed getting in the way, things that were going on in their life when they started having this problem, what will be the good stuff that happens when they get rid of it, what will be the bad stuff that happens when they get rid of it, because that can be can really show you where a block is coming from, and what will they have to do differently when their block is gone. And then before we have our first session, I go through that questionnaire and I look at all the things that they have said, and I'll pick out statements that sound to me like a subconscious block. And I've done this for a long time now, and I can pick them out really quickly, because quite often different clients will have the same block. A common one that gets in the way of a lot of people is feeling like you're not good enough. I'm not good enough. Okay. And that can cause all sorts of problems across your life, including in the money world. So if I don't think I'm good enough, I'm not going to believe I deserve to have more money, or if I feel like I don't deserve it, I won't feel like I have that. Or if I have that feeling I don't deserve it, I'm not good enough, I will not expect people to pay my rates, or I won't be able to raise my rates, for example. These are just some examples of some of the very common ones I see. And that's not just for money, of course, that will affect you across your life. So I'll use that. That knowledge that I have of common blocks. And if I see someone talking about an issue that reminds me of one of those blocks, I'll put it on a long list. And I'll create a long list of the actual words that my clients put in their questionnaire, of things that I think might be there. And I will add to that list as we're talking, because I can hear it when somebody says something that just, it's like a red flag goes off. It's like, oh, that's one, and I'll put it down. And then while we're on that very first session, I'm going to go with people through the list that I have created. And how we do it is, I will say the statement that I've written down one at a time. I'll say one statement, and then my client will say it out loud back to me. Something important about saying it out loud. So if you end up doing this, I want you to be sure to put that in there. Just thinking about it, it gets things kind of muddy. But when you say it out loud, it gets pretty clear. And then I'll have them rate it on a scale of 0 to 100%. How true did it feel? Not how true it is. Logically, rationally, none of these are true, ever. They're just not. But they can feel really emotionally powerful. So it doesn't have to be true emotion, feel true emotionally. You can just feel powerful. That's another way of saying it. But it's on that 0 to 100% scale. It's sort of like the scale they'll have little kids do in the hospital, where, how bad's the pain? Is it 1? Hey, or is it 10? 0 to 100%. I like to give lots of wiggle room in there to get the fine gradations, okay? And we'll go through the whole list of things that I think might be there. And I might add to it as we're going along. I'll tweak the words a little bit, because different words can, just a one word change can make a really big difference. Let's see, one thing might be the difference between I'm not allowed to something versus I can't something. Yeah, I can get very different ratings on that 0 to 100% scale from a client if I just change that lead into it. So playing around with the words is really helpful, and I'll just point that out to you as you try this. Be free to try the words a little bit differently, even if you think it's the same thing. But because some of these blocks come from when you're a kid, and they go in with the kids' words, keep it simple, but be willing to try different things. Okay, so. Once we've gone through the list, and I basically get my winners by knowing which are the high scorers, and we'll pull out the ones that make the most, have the biggest connection to the block that my client wants to get rid of. So as you're doing this, you have whatever list that you have, and you go through it after you've finished making the list and you've rated each one of those statements. Then you want to go back and pick out maybe the top score, or maybe the top 3 score, whatever. And from those, you choose the one you want to work on first. Maybe because it's the top scorer, but maybe it's also because it's because it's the one that you feel drawn to. Or maybe it seems like it's the easy one to start with. I don't care where you start or how you start, but you want to know where you're starting from, because once you start tapping, those numbers start to come down. And you'll forget that they were ever very high. So you want to start with and know what you've accomplished. Okay, so it's really easy for me to identify a block these days. I mean, not always, but I've done it enough that it can be really pretty clear to me when someone's talking, oh, that's a block. There's something subconsciously going on there. Let me capture that. Let's talk about that one. When you're just starting out, it can be a lot harder to find these things, especially on yourself. I find it hard to recognize them on myself, but I'm getting better at it the more I do it. And there's some different ways that you might be able to capture your own specific blocks around money. So one way to figure out what your subconscious block or blocks might be is to notice what happens when you're trying to take action to bring in some more money. That might be you're trying to get ready to ask for a raise at work. It might be you're trying to create something to sell. If you have your own business, but you don't have to have your own business. I work with a lot of business owners, but if you just simply have something you want to go take to have a garage sale to sell, and you're hoping you'll make a lot of money, notice what happens when you're trying to take that action. Notice what happens when you think about your current money situation. Hey, Billy, welcome. talking about ways to identify your own personal subconscious money blocks. So the first one, I'm encouraging you to notice what happens physically, emotionally, mentally when you try to take action to get some more money. Notice what happens when you're thinking about what's currently happening in your financial situation. If you've got some debt, what are you telling yourself about it? Well, how does it feel physically, okay? And also notice what happens when things go south on you financially. And when I say notice what happens, there's 3 different areas that you can be looking at. You can look at the words you use to yourself. Those are the easiest ones. If you're saying, oh, I never have enough money, write it down. That's what you're telling yourself about money. And that is the subconscious rule that you're working from, which is going to trip you up when you try to make more money. Even though consciously you think, well, that's just ridiculous. That just because I say that doesn't make it true. And yet our brains do this weird thing where they will get in the way of you wanting to make more money if some part of you says, I never have enough, okay? So notice what you're thinking, and by all means write it down, just like I write down that list for from the questionnaire and from what I hear from clients. Write down your statements that come to mind for when you try to take action, when you're thinking about your current money situation, when things go wrong, okay? But maybe it doesn't come up as words. It depends on the person, it depends on the situation. Sometimes words will come to mind for me, but sometimes it's not words. Sometimes instead it's more of an emotion, it's a feeling. And then if I'm thinking about my current financial situation and up comes this feeling of dread, well, I want to put some words to that. Let's say if I'm feeling afraid, I might say, I'm afraid that everyone will be jealous of me when I have lots of money. Maybe that's it. If that's what I'm feeling afraid of, what am I feeling afraid of? You want to ask your emotion, well, what's this all about? Or maybe you're thinking about, this current situation is you just lost that big deal and you're not going to have as much money as you thought. Maybe what comes to mind is, wow, I'm relieved. I'm relieved because now I won't have to give my brother-in-law a loan. Even if your brother-in-law would never ask about it, but somehow or other that's the thought in your head. That's what you want to put down. I'm relieved that I won't have to take care of so-and-so. Okay, so that gives you some idea of what's underlying it. Now, something like I'm relieved because I won't have to take care of someone else. You want to go a little bit further, which is if I have money, people will ask for more from me. People will take advantage of me. Something like that. It is the first layer, and you want to dig lower and find out what it is that's really driving this. Okay. And one more way, the third way that you might notice when you're trying to take action or when you're thinking about the current money situation and when things go wrong, you might notice that you get a physical sensation. The pit of your stomach drops, or you get this tension in your shoulders, or you get a little headache right here, or something like that. So you're going to want to put words to it, just like you put words to the emotion. So if it's like, oh, I'm afraid, I feel a stomach drop. Oh, I'm afraid that I'll just go through this all over again, this boom and bust with my money. Okay. That would be one way, and you capture that statement on your list. It could also be that doesn't really tell you what it's all about, but you know you've got this physical sensation. So a different thing you can do with the physical sensation is track it back to earlier times when you had it. If you can go back to the very first time you felt that physical sensation, that's usually gold. And then you want to remember what that situation is and what was the message from that. So if I was at the airport and I got lost and I was a little kid and my family wasn't around, and I would decide maybe the physical sensation was like feeling icy in the center of my chest. Okay. And I can remember that it was from when I was 3 years old or whatever. I could say, well, what is that feeling? Well, it wasn't safe. I'm not safe. So that would be my statement. I'm not safe. Okay. So if I'm thinking I'm going to have, I'm about to get a lot of money and I've got that cold sensation in my chest. The statement is, I'm not safe with money. Having money isn't safe. Something like that. Play around with the words and then you can test it, right? So that's how you go from a physical sensation to a statement that you can rate and see how that fits in. All right. So that's how you figure out using what happens when you're trying to take action to get money, or your current situation, your financial situation has you thinking about things, or when something goes wrong. But that's not the only way to come up with your statements. Another great way is to notice how you talk and think about wealthy people. More importantly, how you talk about it, actually, because we'll say things sort of about, like almost joking, or like, oh yeah, we all agree this, without really thinking it through. And when you try to think about it, you say, well, that's not true. But if you said it, that means it comes from somewhere. We're looking at the subconscious here, so we want to find where that's coming from. So do you talk about wealthy people? Oh, they're all greedy, or they're spoiled, or stuck up, pompous, or they're climbers, or negative words like that. Or selfish. That's a big word that comes up when you're talking about wealthy people. And if you believe subconsciously that having wealth makes you that way, even if it's subconscious, consciously you would not say this. There are plenty of good, wealthy people out there doing good in the world. Isn't that marvelous? But subconsciously, emotionally, you've got this reaction to wealthy people that says bad, bad, bad. You want to capture that. So if you're saying wealthy people are just selfish, you can put that one down, and you can also put, I have to be selfish to have money, or if I have money, I'll get selfish. Play around with the words, and so that you can find one statement that has the highest number possible when you rate it. Okay. So that's about wealthy people. You could do the same thing about money. What do you say about money? How do you think about it? Are you always, do you find yourself commonly saying something like, there's never enough? Money doesn't grow on trees, which kind of means there's never enough, right? I can never get ahead. You have to work too hard to have more money. Or if I get it, it'll just get taken away. The car just breaks down every time. If you say things like that, you want to capture that, because that is what that's your subconscious coming through. And even though you might say logically, rationally, that's not really true, I don't believe it, some part of you does if you're saying or thinking it. So that is exactly what you'd want to tap on. Okay. All right. When you've captured some statements through any of these or all of these approaches, then you've written them down, right? You're going to rate them. Remember that scale, 0 to 100%. How true does this feel? Or how powerful does this feel? Logically, rationally, it's not true. None of these things are true. Okay. Money's just energy. Money is just a tool. It makes, if you're a nice person, it's just going to allow you to be nicer. If you're a generous person, it'll allow you to be more generous. If you're a greedy person, it allows you to be more, grabby. Money's just energy. It doesn't make you anything. It doesn't make you selfish. It doesn't cause all this stuff. But you want to capture the statement, write it down, and then say it out loud, rate it on that scale of 0 to 100%. How true did it feel? How powerful did it feel? Okay. And if you get one of those where it's like 70%, but she's like, gosh, that could be even higher if I just changed a word or 2 or 5. Change the words, try it out. See how high you can get that number, because the higher the number, the more powerful the subconscious belief. Okay. And then of course, and this is where I thought I was going to start today. That's the time where you can use some tapping on it, because you've captured what it is that the problem is. Now you want to tap and release it, because it's not doing you any good. And that's what I'm going to talk about next time. That'll be 2 weeks from now. And that's because next week I'm out of town. I'm sorry, but I am. And I won't be able to do my Facebook Live. But in 2 weeks, I will talk about different ways that you can tap to get rid of your money blocks. And just so you know, I've had some people reach out to me. It's really clear that this is hitting a chord with a lot of people. So I'm working on something for people who are going to want to go further than just these Facebook Lives. And I'll tell you more about that at the end of my next talk. And if you want to let me know that you're interested in that at any time, shoot me an email, nancy@unblockresults.com, or direct message me, or you could put a comment in the post. Put a comment with this movie if you want to. If you want to keep it more private, direct message or email are the way to go. And again, that's nancy@unblockresults.com. All right. Well, I hope that was helpful. And I hope to see you all in 2 weeks, which is, I don't know, it's the first Monday in November. I'll look it up. Give me a minute here. So it's November, Monday the 4th. And I'm here on Facebook Lives at 2 o'clock Pacific, my time. If you're on the East Coast, that's 5 o'clock. And if you're in the middle of the country, where I was much of the time, you can do the math yourself. I know you can do this. Okay. But I hope to see you in a couple of weeks. And again, if you're at all interested in doing some more with this, by all means, reach out and I'll let you know. And I'll tell you some more about that in 2 weeks. But in the meantime, I'd love to hear some comments or some questions. Shoot me some more questions you might have about money blocks and how tapping can help with them. I know I haven't covered everything, but I would like to be able to answer any questions you have. And when I'm done with this, of course, I'll go back to more Facebook Lives just on tapping in general and specific topics other than money too. So if you've got questions about that, shoot them my way and I will happily put them on the roster and make sure that I talk about them down the road. Okay? Anyway, thanks for your time. I hope to see you in a couple weeks, and I hope this was helpful. In the meantime, happy tapping.